It's the third Saturday in July. It's 9 o'clock, and I'm standing in front of 3 TV cameras. It's either a bad nightmare or it's TV Toastmasters. All right. I'm Rick Davis. I'm the president of TV Toastmasters this year, and I'd like to introduce our Toastmaster for today, Steve Ahrenholz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, welcome everyone to our July 20th, 2013 TV Toastmasters meeting. We have a full meeting today. We also have guests in our studio here. We have Angela Hollingsworth, Frank Ritchie, and Beth Priest. So help me welcome our guests today. We have 3 speakers as well as our table topics and the evaluation portion of our meeting. So we're going to get going with what we have in store today. Our first speaker that we're going to be hearing from is a new member of ours, and she's going to be presenting Word of the Day. Help me welcome Patty Ragetz. Patty?
They told me to tell you how many times you say the word zeal in your speak today. So the word is zeal. It means fervor, intense enthusiasm. Her zeal for Toastmasters made every meeting more educational and fun. So we will be counting how many times you say the word zeal.
Thank you, Patty. Yes, we want to try and incorporate the word of the day in our speaking throughout the meeting. We'll see how successful everyone is in using the word zeal. And I suspect that if you use zealous or zealot, that will probably give you credit as well. The next part of our meeting that we're going to have is that portion of the meeting some people really don't like. It helps us work on our impromptu speaking skills. What our Table Topics master today will be doing is giving us a question or a topic to speak on, and then he'll call on someone. And the people he's going to call on don't know that he's going to call on them until he does it. They'll have basically the time they have from their seat to getting up here to prepare their speech. It's a mini speech, basically. Helps us learn to speak on our feet. Help me welcome our Table Topics master for today, Rick Davis. Rick.
Hey, Steve. We are, the premise of the Table Topics today is, we've all done it. We were going to do our book report over the summer, or over Christmas vacation, and of course we didn't get to it. We were doing other things that were important, like having fun. And so we come back to class, we have to talk about the book for a couple minutes, and we've never read the book. So I have a couple of books here that I think will be a challenge for some of our more experienced Toastmasters. And I would like to get started by inviting Michelle to come up and talk about You Are Not a Gadget by Jaron Lanier.
Table Topics Master. Wow, what a great summer. I'm so excited to be back in class, and this was an amazing book. I hope each and every one of you will take the time to read this. You Are Not a Gadget. Yaron? Can't quite pronounce his name, but he and I go way back. This book was very important to me. It made me understand that I'm not a gadget. I'm truly a human being and a person, and I'm not just a thing. And that's what it does. It really takes you the emotions, and it helps you understand how important you are, your contributions to society. And it makes you want to read his next book, which I'm going to do next summer. to get in a little bit about the book, there's no pictures, as you can see, which kind of disappointed me. But Chapter 7, The Prospects for Humanistic Cloud Economics. My favorite chapter of the book. And I don't want to tell you too much because it'll spoil the surprise. So please, take the time, read this, and enjoy life.
Thank you. All right. I see one here that somebody else was supposed to read over the summer and didn't get to. Rick Barron, Confessions of a Public Speaker.
Thank you, Rick. Confessions of a Public Speaker. I selected this book for my book report specifically because I'm a closet public speaker. Even though you see me here on TV Toastmasters twice a month, it's really not me. It's an imposter. And I thought that it was important that I come clean and come out of the closet to let you know that this really isn't Rick. Did you ever see Men in Black? How aliens are all over the planet masquerading as real people? Well, I just happen to be one of those aliens, masquerading as a real person here on TV Toastmasters. And I thought that this Confessions of a Public Speaker would allow me to be true to myself, to be true to my planet, and to be true to each and every one of you, to let you know that it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter what kind of skills you have, it doesn't even matter whether or not you think you're any good. Each and every one of us has within us the ability to be a public speaker. You just have to practice, and you can come join us at TV Toastmasters and practice as well. Awesome book.
Hard to believe he didn't read it. Now this one, this one is a comic book, a big comic book. And so the guy thought it would be easy to read over the summer, just read comics. But Shankar didn't read it, did you, Shankar? Logic Comics.
Logic Comics, thank you. Logic Comics. Comics is not my favorite, but after reading this book, you will not believe how interesting this is. Each and every story there is so interesting. And the subtitle goes really well. It's an epic search for truth, and that is true. These are silly stories, but it'll make you think how real it fits into your life every day. And I don't want to spoil the surprise in this book. There are so many stories that you would love, and I bet you have come across this in several movies. You just haven't realized those are all keyed up in this book. Chapter after chapter, story after story, picture after picture. It is unbelievable. I bet you would love this book, Logic Comics, and I want you to all take at least one story in this and just read. It will not take more than 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker was supposed to read Andy Groves. Andy Groves was the head of Intel, and only the paranoid survive. Angela, would you like to give a try at that?
Sir, thank you. Wow, what can I say? This was wonderful. I really am a fan of technology. How to exploit the crisis point that challenge every company and career. Wow, doesn't that grip you? It gripped me, I tell you what. I thought when it came to just information technology that I had a little bit of a handle on it, but this guy, he brought me forward. If he were here today, I would get him a cup of coffee. Now, what's great is about technology, at least books like this, there are no pictures. You must be able to think on your feet, because when you're in the back of that computer, when you're putting parts together, it's another world. Oops, another world. Well, only the paranoids survive. Now that should grip you right there. Only the paranoid survive when it comes to modern technology. Thank you for writing this book, sir. It enriched my life forever. I'm so grateful. Read this when you can. Thank you, everyone.
All right. One of our long-term members was supposed to read this book, Wrong, Why Experts Keep Failing Us and How to Know When Not to Trust Them. Paul, would you come and talk about Wrong?
Wrong. This book was all kind of wrong to me. First of all, I kind of misplaced it. So I know I had all summer to read it, but I kind of misplaced it. I set it downstairs in the basement, and my dog got a hold of it. So it was kind of wrong. I kept chasing him around. I didn't really get to this book for a while, but finally I got to it. And experts keep failing us. How experts keep failing us. It's really actually a good book. It really tells you not to trust experts, really. You got to really think for yourself periodically. Even though I was chasing the dog around, I did get to it at night. I read it a couple times, but really just be faithful to yourself. It's good to take advice from other people, but really you have to take your own gut, take the information you got and kind of go with your gut. So it took me a while to get it. It took me a while to chase that dog down. It does say wrong, but it actually gives you some right information out of it.
Another Toastmaster visiting us from out of town was supposed to read this book over the summer. Frank, would you come and talk about Wine and War, the French, the Nazis, and the Battle of France's Greatest Treasure? Whoop, careful, careful.
Thank you, Topics Master. Wine and War. It's rather interesting what was in this book. I've been told, I didn't have an opportunity to really look at it, but talking with people about the war and the French and the Nazis, it seems that when World War II was being approached, there were a lot of people that were denying that the World War was coming. They were trying to pass it off. And the French, as is their style, spent a great deal of time drinking wine and thinking that the war would not come and it would just pass over. While at the same time, the Nazis were arming for a war, and seriously arming for a war, while the French were relaxing. The point where Hitler realized that he had it made for the entry into World War II was when he sent troops into the Saarland between the two countries, and it was supposed to be a neutral space. He had anticipated that the French would not respond. He guessed right. The French did not respond. He moved more troops into the Saarland. They were in place to take over the Maginot Line, did so subsequently, and we know the results of that activity. We had a nice World War II where almost everybody played. Topics Master.
Thank you. Let's get a round of applause for everybody that did a table topic today. They did a great job. I'll turn it back to our Toastmaster, Steve Ahrenholz. Steve.
Thank you, Rick. Everyone did a really good job bluffing their way through the book report.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well. There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Our first speaker is a former club officer in TV Toastmasters. He's going to be giving a speech from the Competent Communicator Manual. His speech is working on projecting sincerity and conviction, and he also wants to control any nervousness that he may have, although I don't know that I've seen a lot of nervousness demonstrated by our next speaker. The title of the speech is Grit. It's 5 to 7 minutes long, and Paul Wessels will be giving us his speech, Grit. Paul?
Thank you, Steve. I had a friend, and this was probably 15 years ago, and he bought a car. It was a used car. It was a kind of a late model car. It ran really well. And it turned out he drove it for about 2 years, and the engine blew on the car. It actually seized up on the car. He took it to the shop and went with him to the shop. It turns out he never put an air filter. He really wasn't a car person. He didn't have an air filter on the car. So he went 2 years. I think he changed the oil, he did, but there was no air filter. And it turns out the mechanics, they opened this thing up and they showed us what went wrong. There was just a little bit of grit in the engine. A little bit of particles got into the engine, and it messed up the whole engine. It seized the whole engine up. It was blown. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here, grit. It's something that gets into the engine or the system, and it kind of messes it all up. There are different forms of grit. Grit, like I just talked about, little pieces of dirt and particles and things like that. You also have grit in computers. When you get a bug in the computer, it's kind of code that's a little bit messed up, and just a little code can destroy the whole program. You also have non-materialistic forms of grit. Non-compliance. In the military, we're just talking about the military. Boot camp, the Army, they try to get rid of the gritty people, the outliers, the burrs. They try to kind of smooth everything out, and that's the object of boot camp, to get rid of grit. And countries like to get rid of grit too. You have countries, they have slogans. If that nail is up, we're going to hammer it down. So they're trying to get rid of things that mess up the system. What I want to talk about here is our system. We've got a great system over the last 100 years, 200 years. It's gotten really good at eliminating grit from things. We're good at focusing on what's wrong and getting rid of that grit. But I'd like to submit here that the system that's so good, it's all around us, it kind of bleeds over into people. And the system not only wants to get rid of grit from things, but also from people. People that may be a little different, people that mess up the system. And I don't think it's really something that may be good. How does the system that we're in, which is so good at getting rid of grit from material things, get rid of grit from people? Well, it's very easy. The system, in my opinion, what it does is it takes and it keeps feeding you external advice. And it keeps you from, it makes it easy to take the external advice as opposed to looking at internal advice. For example, external control. What the system does is it tells you, do what I say. Do what I say. I know you can do what you want. I know this is a free country, but if you do what I say, it's going to be a lot easier. So just do what I say. Don't mess up the system. External motivation. The system. Let me motivate you. Let me entertain you. Just sit back, relax. Don't worry about it. The Kardashians are on. You got sports. I'll motivate you. You don't have to motivate yourself. Let me do it. External instead of internal. External approval. This is a big one. You see it all the time. The system. Why are you wearing that? What are they going to think? Are you kidding me? What are they going to do? What are they going to think of you? You're going to pick that mate instead of that mate? I know what you're saying. But if you pick that mate, it's going to be so much easier. Don't worry about it. Follow the system. So you've got all these external forces all around us telling us what to do. What does internal strength do for you? Well, it does a couple things for you. If you resist that, internal strength helps you stand up for your own ideas, for example, in face of that. It helps you get impact on a situation. What does internal forces do if you do it yourself? Helps you face criticism. That's stupid. Why are you doing it that way? Do it my way. It's so much easier. Helps you face that. And finally, it helps you do the right thing. The system, again, it comes up to, it's not illegal. I know it's close to the line, but it's not really. It's not technically illegal. Look how much easier it is. Do it this way. So it's external. What does internal strength do for you? It helps you, but it messes up the system. It makes you a piece of grit. The system doesn't like that. We need pieces of grit. We've got this great system. It's got lots of zeal. This system is all around us. We need this system. The system was built up over years. It's good at mass producing things because it gets rid of grit. It's good at making engines run well. Cars, it's good at making computers. But this system that it's all around us, it's so comfortable. It's like a drug. You get tired, you want to just go with it and listen to it. Don't let that system take the grit out of you.
Thank you, Paul. We'll take a moment now for the evaluators to complete their evaluation for Paul, and we'll be back in a moment.
Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Glitchner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
Welcome back. Our next speaker is a past area governor. He's been club president and vice president of public relations. He's well qualified to give us the speech we're going to hear from him today. The speech is from a persuasive approach from the Public Relations Manual. It will be 8 to 10 minutes. The title of it is, If Not You, Then Who? Help me welcome Rick Barron. Rick?
Thank you, Steve. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? Reflect back on the social changes that have occurred in our country. In most cases, we attribute those changes to a single individual. Go back to Lincoln freeing the slaves, or Martin Luther King starting the civil rights movement. In each of those cases, we give considerable leadership to those individuals, when in actuality, all they really did was ignite the spark that lit the way for the rest of the leaders and us to do the real work that was necessary to make that change occur. And today, my objective is to ask you for your commitment to resolve an inequality that's going on in our society. Every year, about 8 million dogs and cats enter shelters in our country. 3 to 4 million of those leave in body bags. Healthy and treatable animals that are needlessly killed incongruent with the way that we as a society reflect them. Over the centuries, our animals have moved from the barnyard to the bedroom, in many cases taking the most coveted space in the house, right there on our beds. In addition, think back. Who was your first best friend? Siblings don't count. I'll bet your very first best friend had 4 legs instead of 2. How is it that we've gone so far from what each of us believes in our hearts, that the shelters that we create with tax dollars to rescue and save those animals are killing them. These organizations typically have zeal for 3 excuses. The first one is pet overpopulation. They say there are just too darn many animals, and that they have to save some and kill the rest. The Humane Society of the United States and Maddie's Fund recently did a survey that said every year we add approximately 23 million new pets to our homes. 23 million new pets to our homes every year. 8 million animals enter the shelter. 4 million of those animals leave in body bags. Do the math. All we need to do is a better job of making the public aware that animals need to be rescued. And those 4 million animals can go home to loving homes. The second excuse that they use is that the public is irresponsible. If the irresponsible public would only spay and neuter, if the irresponsible public would just retain their animals and not bring them to the shelter, that these organizations would not have to kill so many pets. In over 300 open admission shelters in this country, representing almost 500 communities, they save more than 90% of the animals going into those shelters. It's the same public in these communities who previously had been killing all of the animals. So what changed? What changed is the policies and procedures at the shelter. That's what changed, not the public. The third excuse that's often used by these organizations is that it's too expensive. Saving lives is too expensive. The average cost to euthanize an animal and dispose of it properly is about $40. $40. An animal typically eats a couple of cups of food every day. The shelter's paid for, the staff is paid for already, and all we're talking about is an extra buck to feed an animal for another day. So this argument of too expensive doesn't really hold water. There is a solution. There really is a solution. I told you that there are over 300 open admission shelters that use 11 programs called the no-kill equation. These 11 programs, when used collectively, have been demonstrated time and time again to save over 90% of the animals in our open admission shelters, ultimately proving that we can do it, that we can adopt our way out of the killing. It is possible. Locally, Claremont County has initiated a no-kill initiative, Claremont Pets Alive. And that organization is seeking your leadership to help make perception and reality to align them in Claremont County, to save the over 2,500 animals that were killed last year and that will probably be killed again this year. You can step up to help bring truth to your heart and to understand that the animals that we care so dearly for, that we make members of our family, that we dress up in costumes, that we take with us while shopping, that we make family members, can now live happy, healthy lives. You can commit yourself to helping be a leader by visiting cpavolunteer.org, Claremont Pets Alive volunteer.org, CPA volunteer.org. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? We can do it. We can adopt our way out of the shelter killing here in Cincinnati.
Thank you, Rick. We'll take a moment for the evaluators to complete their evaluation of Rick's speech, and we'll be right back.
I'd like to begin tonight with a little joke. This guy, he's a farmer, and he says, hey, hello, sorry. But seriously, folks.
Speaking in public is no joke.
Farmer says, doctor says, chicken says...
For help, call Toastmasters, the public speaking support group.
The chicken.
Welcome back. Our next speaker is an individual that is well known among Toastmasters. She is going to be completing her 13th Competent Communications Manual. She also has 3 DTMs, or Distinguished Toastmaster Awards. This is going to be a speech relevant to a lot of us who are sometimes having to think about interviews, especially if people are out of work and they're looking for an interview. Carol's message is going to help prepare folks for surviving the job interview using the STAR method. Let us welcome Carol Kormelink. Be a star at your next job interview. Carol?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest. Be a star at your next interview. Some companies hire for attitude and train for aptitude. They can't instill a good attitude in you, but they can train you for what you do not know. A lot of people are very terrified when they go for an interview. They muff it. However, they can answer questions with zeal if they realize that for the past decade, employers have been asking behavior-based questions. They figure that how you performed in the past is an indication of how you can fit into the culture of their company by how you would perform in the future. If I were asked a question before I knew about the STAR method, I would have had brain freeze, such as some of us do when we come up here for Tabletopics. You just went through Tabletopics and learned that by answering a question that you didn't expect to answer, it allows you to keep your brain open and to think on your feet. And when you're asked that behavior-based question, you will be able to come up with some answers. If you do some research, you can be a star at your next interview. For instance, if the company has a lot of teamwork, they will want to know how you work as a team. And they might ask you, tell me about a time that you had to work with someone who was difficult to get along with. Ouch. However, if you use the STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, or result, you will be able to come through with flying colors. Situation. The situation is that you were assigned to purge the files with that difficult to get along employee. She wants to do everything her way. You take that file over there, and I'll take this file by my desk, and we'll go through the files and purge them. You work, and I'll work. My task was to show a better way that we could cooperate with each other as a team, and we would be able to accomplish more faster. I suggested working as a team We could work together on the files, and one could be creating the box to put the files in and making the labels. And as if one got behind, they could be helping the other do that. And then if we had to collaborate with each other and say, should this get shredded or should we purge it and put it in the off-site filing? That way we would be right there and be helping each other. And I didn't mention that we might also find some rapport in doing things together as a team, which did happen. So my action, I explained to her the reason for tackling the task was to help her realize that by working together, we would have to handle the files only once. We would be able to confer with each other and help each other as we're going along to go through the files, label them, put them in the boxes, and do the next file. And the result, the task was accomplished and ahead of time. What would have been a 4-hour task, working separately, working together, was a 2-hour task, and we had a good time doing that. We learned that there were things about each of us. Another example of how you might use a STAR approach, and this one was from a person that I heard the other day, and she said that she was asked, tell me about a time when you were expected to resolve a difficult customer-related situation, and how did you handle it? Her situation was that the customer had returned a product. However, they wrote on the product, which then made it non-returnable. Uh-oh. She wasn't going to be able to have a refund, and so the task was to inform the customer of the situation that she would not receive the credit while retaining her business. So the action that she took was to actually call the person on the phone, and she explained the situation that she could not receive the credit, and she said, well, would you want us to be shipping items to you that were written on, that were obviously returned and then resent to you? The customer completely understood the situation. She retained the business, and that was a good outcome of something that she could have lost a customer. There are if you research behavior-based questions, I pulled up a list of 50, and some of those, if you were not prepared, they would really throw me. But one of the things that you want to do is to make sure that you have information for your next interview. Do some research, Google the company to learn as much as you can about the company. You may find that that's a Fortune 500 company. They have higher standards, and you want to make sure that you fit in. Read the job description and make sure that you can match your skills and characteristics with those the employer is searching for. Use the STAR method and start recording some of the specific projects and situations that you successfully handled, and keep them in a file. In closing, by taking action now to build your STAR examples, you will be better prepared and more confident on your next interview. And when you provide that detailed information on your qualification and experiences, you will be able to expose your personality in a way that is favorable for the employee to choose you as the best candidate for the job. And one other little tip, one lady, she had worked at a job for 31 years and was laid off. One of our Toastmasters in one of my other clubs is an HR person, and she said she would help her with her interview. She let her know all the things that she needed to correct if she wanted to get another job. She came in with the attitude she didn't know what the company did. She would take any job. That is not a good candidate for an employer, because they know as soon as something better comes along, you will not be there. Study what the company does, what your job might be, and then you will be better prepared to fit your qualifications into the expectations of the employer. So once more, S stands for
Situation.
T stands for
Toastmasters.
A is for
Action.
R is for
Result.
Be a star at your next interview. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol. interesting speech. We're going to take a moment now for Carol's evaluator to complete their evaluation, and we'll be back momentarily.
All the education in the world won't help you get ahead in life if you can't express your ideas effectively. Every day, competition for advancement gets tougher and tougher. You need an edge. A Toastmasters club can give you that edge. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters gives you the confidence to express your ideas to anyone. Get the Toastmasters edge.
The first evaluator that I'm going to be calling up here today will be giving us his evaluation of Paul Wessels' speech, Grit. Help me welcome Shankar Raswa. He's going to be giving us his evaluation of Paul Wessels' speech, Grit.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Paul is not here? Right there. Paul, I know you were able to spin the speech in a day's notice, and that was terrific. If there is one word to really characterize your speech that goes very well with the word of the day today, it was zeal. You were really, really into the topic. And some of the highlights of your speech that I really liked was you started with a little personal story, like a friend of yours having a problem with his car. And that kind of quickly grasped everyone's interest, I thought. And you were able to set expectations up front and kind of organize the speech and then get into your topic. You had really good use of your arms, like, showing you used had a good body language for the points you were trying to make. And I thought it was really good, and it was going complementary with what you were saying. The only suggestion I would make here is definitely it was a non-conformist thought going on there, and you were starting to build a little movement within TV Toastmasters, I could tell. How it would fit in real life with a real example for day-to-day people. That would be an action item for the audience, so they can quickly relate to, okay, what are my next steps now? That would be a great conclusion. You had your punchline, don't take the system, take the grit out of you, and I thought that was really catchy. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankar. Our next evaluator, who will be giving us her assessment of Rick Barron's speech entitled, If Not You, Then Who, is our former TV Toastmaster president, Michelle Lewis. Michelle?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Guests at home and our audience, but most importantly, Rick. Rick always has such zeal for his objectives, and today you can tell that you had that zeal for the no-kill movement. You did a great job of persuading us with was the objective of this speech. To be a direct, persuasive appeal to the audience's self-interest using a combination of facts and emotion in a speech delivered in such a manner that it appears extemporaneous. And I don't even know if I said that correctly. Persuade the audience to adopt your viewpoint by use of standard persuasive techniques and use at least one visual aid. You did exactly that. You stated your proposal. You said to the audience, my objective. So it was clear that you wanted us to help resolve the inequality that is present for animals in the no-kill shelter. You did a great job of recognizing the opposing viewpoints. So you went through and you told us there's a pet overpopulation, there's an irresponsible public, and that it's too expensive. So those are the viewpoints of the opposing side. And what you did is you gave us the exact reasons why these opposing viewpoints don't have merit. You gave us statistics, gave us a lot of facts. So you gave us the number of animals going into the shelter, the number of new pets added every year, and the number that leave in a body bag. And that quote 3 to 4 million leaving in a body bag really tugged at my heart. So you used emotion. You really made the people sit back and think, wow, this really is a problem. And there's definitely a solution to that. I really liked at the beginning how you spoke about leadership, and you referenced famous iconic people who were leaders, Lincoln and MLK, and then you really talked about how what they're really meant to do is just ignite the spark that lit the way for us to all really contribute to these challenges. As far as Rick, it's always hard to pick something out for you to do better. The only thing that I could think of, so one of your tasks was to use the visual aid, and you used the lady with the muscle, and hey, you can do it. But maybe bring in some of the pictures of the animals that are in the shelters, because that always seems to trigger emotion. If anybody knows that Sarah McLachlan commercial they put on TV, and every time I see it, I mean, a tear practically comes to my eye. So maybe another way to invoke a little bit more emotion in the people that you're speaking to by possibly showing a visual aid of the animals. I really like how you gave us a call to action. You gave us the information that we need. You said, Claremont Colony, CPAvolunteer.org. This is how you can help it. And my favorite statistic of the day was $1 more a day to feed an animal. And that's nothing compared to what the problem is out there. So I really think you did a great job. You intrigued us, you gave us motivation, and you definitely convinced us that that No Kill is an organization that, of the 11 programs that No Kill has, is an organization that could use our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next evaluator will be giving us his assessment of Carol Kormelink's speech. David is one of our newer club members, so help me welcome David Fortunato. He'll be evaluating Carol's speech.
Thank you. Carol, excellent job as always. I always enjoy your speeches. I think this one really hit home because we've all been there. We've all had to go on job interviews. And we've always had that nervous feeling in our gut. And what can we do to better prepare for these interviews? I really liked your opening statement that most job interviews are about attitude. They assume you can do the position, do the tasks. What they're looking for is that your attitude fits with their culture and their company. Really liked that. I really loved you brought in, adapted your speech, your planned speech, and you mentioned table topics today. Really great way to connect with the audience. I feel, you brought something in that happened just a few minutes ago. Did a great job with your visuals explaining the STAR method, both visually and you talked about them so that no matter what your way of learning is, I think the audience can definitely relate to what you said. One thing I will mention on this point, just some minor things that you could have worked on or structured a little differently. I counted, you mentioned the STAR method 3 times before you explained what it was. While it's okay, I was a little confused what exactly it is because I had not heard that particular term before. So that is one thing that I would just look at when structuring your speech. The way you wrapped up was excellent as well. You really explained why using the STAR method will help you better prepare. You gave some other ways to make the interviewer more comfortable in the process. The other thing I thought you could have touched on just a little bit more to drive home is practice, practice, practice. This is a generational thing, but I was given some advice a few years ago that even if you're satisfied in your job, even if you love your job, you should interview at least once a year. Keep your interview skills sharp, and just know this behavioral-based questions, be ready, be prepared. That's one thing you could have mentioned, but you did mention you should definitely practice. And again, your final points, I really liked. I really understood why using the STAR method will make you a better interviewer and more attractive to companies. And I thought overall it was just a great speech. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Rather than turn back the meeting to our Toastmaster today, I am going to go ahead and return the meeting directly to our president. Mr. President?
Thank you, Steve. I'd like to call up some of our guests today to say a few words about what they saw at the meeting and what they think of the meeting. Oh, sorry about that. We have to wrap it up. Okay. Just go? Okay. Why don't we call up some guests then? Angela Hollingsworth, would you come up and tell us what you saw today?
Appreciate that. I saw that you have to be a much more active listener, which I think you work at, and I'm really not that. I'm working at it. I noticed that I'm more of a passive listener. So thank you all. I see that you all are very attentive to each other, and you're much more attentive to your own behavior, which is good to see. People need to be personally held accountable for how they do what they do, but not be so caught up and uptight in how we do what we do. So thank you all. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Frank, would you come up and give us a little bit of feedback on what you saw today?
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of items that I feel will be of interest to you because the quality of this club is very, very high. And there was a repetition by the evaluators of, "You did a great job." If they did a great job, it's easy enough to mention the specific point. Secondly, evaluating. If you've ever been to a high-level contest, and I know you have been, you will notice that in the evaluation contest, the evaluators never use notes and win. I suggest that you practice what is called power listening. Take small notes. Don't fill out the manual while you're evaluating. Have a system. There are word codes that you can pick up off the internet for yourself, one that's comfortable for you. Listen to the speech attentively. Make brief notes. Leave them at your seat and come up and deliver a 2 to 3 minute off-the-cuff speech. To cover detail, if you miss something while you're up here, you can do that when you speak to the speaker afterwards and go through the book with them, because then you will recall the fine points that you want to touch on. I thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Great meeting. I learned a little bit about how to run a camera and a great deal about how to run from a camera.
We have someone who, this is their final meeting. Shankar, would you like to come up here and address the club?
Thank you all for having me last year and a half. It's been a great run. I learned a lot, and it's a very diverse and eclectic club. I have seen a lot of members even in my time come and go, and it's been a great learning experience for me personally. And I'm gonna take this all with me to, I'm moving to Chicago in a week. I don't have a place there, so everything's gonna be crushed in 3 weeks, I hope, keeping my fingers crossed. So at least my idea right now is to go there. If I don't find a Toastmasters, try to start a TV Toastmasters. I've been talking with each of you, and more specifically Nikki, to understand what are the intricacies in running a studio. You will hear from me, each of you, for sure. I will keep you posted on how it goes, and hopefully I should be able to start a 4th TV Toastmaster club in all of US. And maybe not very far away from today, you might be showing up in Chicago for one of my clubs, and we should have a good show there. So thank you. I take with you all my great memories at TV Toastmasters and all the little and big experiences here from day one. Thank you all.
Thank you. I would like to remind everyone that. All right, wrap it up. Okay, with that, Nikki's calling, so I have to wrap it up. And that's the July 20th meeting of TV Toastmasters.